What's up, guys? It's your boy, the essential John L. Crossfire, aka the real main event, aka the Rogue Soldier, and today you're about to learn firsthand just what it's like to be caught in the crossfire. But above all else, prepare yourself, because in this very moment, today, right now, you are about to be caught in conversation. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 64 of Caught in Conversation. As always, I am your host, the essential John L. Crossfire, and I'd like to think that I've had a somewhat productive week this week. In the grand scheme of things, people are probably looking at it like I've done absolutely nothing, and, you know, maybe they're right, but I'd like to think in my mind that I've been pretty productive because I've been working on some stuff for the pod here. I managed to squeeze a couple of Twitch streams in, and I thank the people that did join in on those and had a chat with me on there, but this is probably going to be another short one this week, unfortunately. I was originally worried, though, because originally I thought I had absolutely nothing to talk about this week, and I was kind of scrambling, but now here we are. Lots of wrestling news in the last couple of days. As I record this on Saturday morning to go out midday Sunday, of course, tomorrow, duh. And we'll get to that in just a moment, but we had an absolutely fantastic game of football between the Bunnies and the Panthers this past Thursday as I record this. One of the best NRL games that I have watched all year this year. Unfortunately, last night, Mrs. Crossfire very upset with how her Brisbane Broncos fared against the Melbourne Storm in a record-setting score, really, because only the second time in Broncos history that a team has conceded 60 points against them. The first being back in 2007, where it was my Parramatta Eels. So that's a nice little fun fact there. But the Eels are actually playing this afternoon as I record this against the Bulldogs. So I'm hoping, keyword, hoping for a positive result there. But Mrs. Crossfire and I are currently getting ready for our trip to Sydney this coming week. I do have another eye appointment at the Sydney Eye Hospital. I'm crossing all of my fingers and toes that I do get an update about when or where I can finally get these stitches out, because I'm getting to the point where it just feels like I've got sandpaper in my eye and it's driving me fucking nuts. And the vision is slowly but surely coming back in the left eye, which is both crazy and exciting, but I'm also starting to get super impatient because my body, isn't healing quick enough, and I know that, I've got to be patient with this stuff and yada, yada, yada. It's out of my control, but I've gotten to a point where sometimes, like, if I'm having a good day, I can't feel the stitches in there at all, and I want to just go and do stuff, and then I remember, I can't because stitches and they could burst and, all the yucky thing. But at the end of the day, I just want to be able to sit down and just read a book, and I really want to start studying some of the courses that I've been looking at. But nonetheless, I digress. That's a me problem. You guys shouldn't have to worry about my issues, but I was hoping to get the Triple H episode that I've been working on out next week, seeing as how next week will be episode 65, and episodes, that end in zeros and fives are looked at as, milestone episodes, but it all depends on how exhausted I am when I get back home. I may even try to do a random episode in the hotel room with Mrs. Crossfire with a similar setup that I did with Nick Maltino on last week's episode. Obviously, again, it won't be the best quality, but last week's episode didn't actually turn out as bad as I was originally fearing when I listened back, so might try and give it another crack with Mrs. Crossfire. But this might even be end up being the first time that I've missed a week. But obviously, if you see episode 65 pop up next week, then as always, just ignore the many, many rants that I go on this podcast. But the song of the week this week is Easy's Never Been This Hard by Citizen Soldier, of course. Still part of their Scarecrow album, as part of their Fight the Good Fight project. As I always say, I say it all the time, I sound like a crack record, but I cannot stress this enough. It's not weak to speak, it's okay to not be okay, reach out, etc., etc. There's people that love you and your feelings matter. But again, the song of the week for this week is Easy's Never Been This Hard by Citizen Soldier. Now, I'm going to do something that I haven't done since the very early parts of the Caught in Conversation podcast, and I'm going to jump straight in to the match of the week. And the match of the week this week is Pete Dunne versus Tyler Bate at NXT TakeOver Chicago in 2017. Now, this match is super topical given what I'm about to talk about in a moment. Despite this match taking place on US soil, I feel this match is the perfect example of the UK style, and the pairing of Jim Ross and Nigel McGuinness on commentary in this match is an absolute thing of beauty. I don't think I've ever seen Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate have a bad match against each other either, just for the record. Like, you could go watch any of their matches and be amazed, but this one in particular I feel is topical. We're heading into Clash at the Castle in a couple of weeks. Pete Dunne, who is currently known as Butch over on SmackDown, has been teasing potential of him going back to his old character, which I think would be dope, and what better way to do it than in the UK. And on that topic, Drew McIntyre has been teasing having his old theme song return at that event as well. So that's exciting to look forward to. I hope it happens, but if not, it is what it is. It looks like it's shaping up to be a pretty good event. But nonetheless, the match of the week this week is Pete Dunne versus Tyler Bate at NXT TakeOver Chicago 2017. And now, we're only 6 minutes in, 5-6 minutes in, and I'm already on to the main portion of this podcast. So as I said, this one is going to be a short one. I sincerely apologize, but we have had some huge news this week, and to be honest, everyone and their dog, everyone with a wrestling podcast is probably going to talk about literally everything that I'm about to list, but I felt that I felt like I had to talk about it here on Caught in Conversation. But yeah, there's huge news in wrestling this week, though as I said, it has just specifically been in the last couple of days as I record this. First and foremost, though, not necessarily part of the huge news, but there is still a lot of rumours circulating that I kind of wanted to gloss over, and that there is apparently real-life heat between CM Punk and Hangman Adam Page over in AEW. Now, there's been a lot of speculation, actually, that Punk has heat with a good chunk of the roster, and apparently maybe up to his old tricks, and may have even been on the verge of no-showing the latest episode of AEW Dynamite. Now, as always, there is a chance that this could just be a massive work where there's been a false leak to the dirt sheets, as it has happened in the past, but also in the past, given Punk's attitude, and especially for Punk fans such as myself, this is very worrying. Now, Punk apparently has taken exception to something that Hangman said in their feud a couple of months ago. Now, obviously, Punk's been out of action. He's been injured since the match that they had, so he has only just returned to TV this past week. But Punk called out Page while Page was sitting in catering because he had no involvement in the actual segment that Punk was a part of. So some are saying that Page has been made to look like a Punk, no pun intended, by CM Punk, because obviously in a scripted environment, you don't come out unless you're told to. And it looks like CM Punk, in a way, kind of may have gone into business for himself. And on the flip side of that, some are also saying that with Punk's great wrestling brain, and you can't deny that CM Punk does have a great wrestling brain, it could be his way of going out of his way to try and find a way to bring Adam Page back into the fold of the championship picture. But I don't know, regardless, it is an interesting story, whether a work or a shoot. And on the topic of promos, CM Punk and Jon Moxley, who was actually in that segment with Punk, had a fantastic back and forth on this week's Dynamite, and for some reason their match that was scheduled at the AEW All Out pay-per-view in a few weeks' time has been pushed forward to this coming week on Dynamite. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that to see how it all builds. Perhaps this is all just going to be a work shoot to get a triple threat between Punk, Moxley, and Hangman at the pay-per-view, or maybe this is even where MJF will finally find his way back to TV and challenge the winner of that Punk and Moxley match. But I don't know, let me know what you guys think of all of that and what your theories are, because again, like I am a pretty big CM Punk fan, but it has become very apparent in recent years, especially his later years in WWE, that he did very much start believing his own hype. And I always talk about on this podcast how it's okay to be a mark. Like, the whole point of this podcast is I'm a massive mark, but you never want to be a mark for yourself. And in a lot of ways, it looks like CM Punk has almost kind of fallen into that category, which it upsets me because I love the dude and he's super talented. But as always, these are all just reports and they're coming from Dave Meltzer, so take it with a grain of salt. But the belief is that the heat with Punk originally with the roster started with Colt Cabana. He was shifted to the Ring of Honor brand, and there's a lot of, speculation that there was plans to actually completely get rid of Colt due to the falling out that he'd had with CM Punk a few years ago, but the AEW locker room kind of banded together, and again, take it with a grain of salt, but as a CM Punk fan myself, as I keep saying, it just, knowing his track record, it kind of hurts, doesn't exactly paint him in the best light, but maybe it is all a work, and maybe it's just leading to a Punk heel turn. Who knows? But in WWE news, we've definitely got some huge developments here, and this is going to be, basically, as I said, the tail end of today's episode. And again, short one, my bad, but Shawn Michaels, who was in charge of NXT and NXT UK, has now been named the Vice President of Talent Relations and Creative. So essentially, Triple H and Shawn Michaels, D-Generation X, the ones that were doing all the shenanigans in the Attitude Era and then the mid to late 2000s, are essentially running WWE from a product standpoint. And obviously, it's the men behind the characters, but, Shawn thankfully isn't in a CM Punk situation. He kind of wrote his wrongs, so to speak, as the years went on and basically seemingly became a changed person for the better. But regardless, as if this isn't a big enough, news that, hey, Shawn Michaels has this huge position now in the company, we've had a whole bunch of releases to go along with this from NXT, specifically within the UK brand. Now, these releases were Flash Morgan Webster, Mark Andrews, Wild Boar, Jack Stars, Amale, Dave Mastiff, Ashton Smith, Millie McKenzie, Nina Samuels, Rohan Raja, Danny Luna, Shah Samuels, Primate, Amir Jordan, Sid Scala, Eddie Dennis, T-Bone, Tia-Man, Zaya Brookside, Saxon Huxley, Trent Seven, and Kenny Williams. Now, a lot of these names you'd only be familiar with if you were a hardcore NXT fan or if you're a fan of the UK indie scene, but this is a huge chunk of the names, whichever way you slice it. It's only probably about 50 to 70% of the active featured people regularly on the NXT UK TV show. Now, this is one where, as a fan for me, it sucks, because you never want to see people lose their jobs, but at least this set of releases, unlike, all the budget cuts, brother, do make sense to a point. First off, as a fan, I'm really sad to see the likes of Flash Morgan Webster, Mark Andrews, Dave Mastiff, Eddie Dennis, Shah Samuels, Zaya Brookside, Millie McKenzie, and Saxon Huxley go, because I truly felt like they all had tremendous upsides if given the chance, especially Saxon Huxley, because myself and Mrs. Crossfire, neither of us knew anything about him outside of NXT UK, so we don't know how much experience he did or didn't have prior to that, but he was honestly giving us both Bruiser Brody vibes, and there was just something in the way that in the way he carried himself that we both thought that he was going to be a massive star. But obviously, all of these names are a loss to a certain extent. Now, however, there does seem to be a bigger picture and thus possibly a silver lining. Now, on this past week's episode of NXT 2.0, we had NXT UK champion Tyler Bate confront NXT champion Bron Breakker in a segment that did confuse a lot of people, because the tournament in which Bate won the UK championship, despite happening about a month or so now, has only just actually started airing on TV this week. So a little bit of spoiler there from WWE themselves, but we also had the longest reigning tag team champions in the history of WWE on any brand in Gallus, that's Mark Coffey, Joe Coffey, and Wolfgang, took out the Diamond Mine, popped me huge because I'm a big fan of that group, and it has been announced since then that the reason for these appearances, in a couple of weeks' time, the day before Clash at the Castle, I think it's actually the same day as AEW's All Out, it's earlier in the day, but they will be hosting another Worlds Collide event where it's going to be NXT 2.0 versus what remains of the NXT UK brand. And in addition to this, it has been announced that in a similar situation to what happened to Ring of Honor, is that NXT UK now are going to be going on a hiatus after this Worlds Collide event into early 2023, where it will be come back, but it's actually going to be expanded to bigger and better things. It's going to be going from NXT UK to NXT Europe as a whole, and I, for one, am already really excited at the thought of that. I feel as though some of these talents listed will return, but at the same time, it does allow them to go get work elsewhere before the relaunch because they don't have a solid date set in place. So I understand why they did it, similar to when Ring of Honor kind of just released literally everyone on their roster. So I'm hoping that with this, NXT Europe thing, they will do what they did with the NXT UK before the pandemic, where WWE had working relationships with certain indie companies over there, and they still allowed the guys and girls to make a little extra cash. Nonetheless, myself and Mrs. Crossfire, we have talked amongst ourselves about how excited we are for this relaunch, rebrand last night, and we're both huge fans of the UK style, and it opens up the opportunity for even more talent to come in with an expanded horizon in theory. I just hope that they've really put some thought into this and it takes off properly. I feel like specifically will further broaden WWE's relationship with the likes of ICW in Scotland, WXW in Germany, Progress Wrestling in the UK. Personally, as a fan, I'd love to see the possible return of Big Damo, aka Killian Dane, with this bigger focus seemingly being shown on the brand here. But I could see people like Finn Balor and Drew McIntyre even going over there for kind of a one-off with whatever their version of a pay-per-view or a premium live event will be. But as I said, I do see/hope that some of the releases do make their way back. I feel specifically Dave Mastiff or a Trent Seven specifically would be a great help. They'd be great to have around the wrestlers, great to help the young performers, and they can still go in the ring as well. There's absolutely no doubt about that. As a fan, I feel Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews, they just both have something special. They absolutely killed as a tag team as well, and them along with Danny Luna as Subculture, honestly, I'm surprised it didn't catch on more so than it did, but in saying that, the UK brand was still trying to bounce back from the pandemic. But yeah, there's lots of speculation about what the NXT Europe, championship will look like. Are they going to bring back the old school European title? I personally am hoping, and I know that a lot of other people as well are hoping that they're going to kind of base the title on that old WWF European title, because there's something about that title where it's so basic, but it's also just absolutely beautiful, and there's something about looking at it it screams prestige in a weird way. I don't know what it is, but let me know what you guys think about what this means for the NXT UK brand, because in a way it's still technically going to be the NXT UK brand. It's just expanding to Europe as a whole to focus on more people, which I view as a positive thing. But as always, there is going to be a little bit of risk involved. So as I said just before, I hope that they really have put some thought into this. But let me know your opinion on NXT Europe. Granted, we've only got a small snippet of details and no official launch date yet, but they've definitely given us enough to have some hype and speculation, hence why I'm sitting in a room by myself talking into a microphone to go out to you guys. But who do you guys, see being a standout on the brand when it does relaunch? Who would you like to see be a standout on the brand when it relaunches? Who do you think/want to return out of the recently released talent? Just hit me up. What do you think the titles will be called? What do you think the divisions will be called? Etc., etc., etc. But again, it's a bit of a short one today. Also, still a bit of a rant as always, but that will bring me to a close for this week. My apologies for that, but as I said, it's definitely huge news, at least in my opinion. As always, the social media and merch are in the link tree in the description. ICW Australia are hosting Insanity tonight as I record this, so by the time you guys hear this episode, it would have already happened, but keep your eyes peeled for the show that is shaping up to be really great. The October show happening in Tuggeranong titled Southside Bash. Those that follow me on Instagram would have already seen the poster the other day. Of course, shout out to Derek at Curtain Jerker Designs for his awesome work. He's a super talented dude. Never seen a bad poster from him yet. I don't think I ever will, to be honest. The song of the week was Easy's Never Been This Hard by Citizen Soldier. The match of the week was Pete Dunne versus Tyler Bate at NXT TakeOver Chicago 2017. I am the essential John L. Crossfire, and you were just caught in conversation.